What's going on, everybody? It's your boy C-Zar, and we are talking about 4 different Grayscale trusts, one of which is actually an ETF now. The ETH Grayscale Trust is an ETF, and I have to say, I don't know where I've been. I keep up with the markets, guys, but we have the ETH ETFs. Apparently, this happened like 2 days ago or 3 days. I mean, technically, this one came out 3 days ago. I'm looking it up here, and this says it was 1 day ago that the SEC approved 8 ETFs. They approved it, but I didn't know that they were listed. Is there any Ethereum ETFs? There's the Grayscale Ethereum Trust, which is an ETF right now. It has it's the most actively traded one. iShares ETF and Fidelity Advantage ETF, which is FETH. Let's see, actually, FETH, Fidelity. So Grayscale came out first. It was the one to come out first. That's probably why it has the most volume. They had the leg up. I don't know why. I haven't heard of this, but dude, it's kind of crazy. This makes sense why the market might be dumping over the past couple days, right, for crypto and everything. Because when an ETF is approved, you get that pump going into the listing, in which you then dump. We don't have any of the history from ETH before this. That's just kind of crazy. I wonder, is GBTC? We've got all the history from GBTC, but they erased all the history of ETH. It's kind of odd in my opinion, but whatever. Man, all right, so we're talking about ETH very briefly. LTCN for Madeline's Coco, BCHG for J Guy Kima, and ETCG for Mark Black Fox. Hit that like button, subscribe if you want to see more content like this. ETH is at the request of Fashion Fabby. I forgot to include your name. I'm sorry. There's the shout out. Yeah, so there's not a whole lot to go off of with this. The best way to kind of do analysis on this would be to just compare it to the Ethereum price itself, and you can see Ethereum has dropped off a cliff as well, probably due to the ETH ETF being listed. Again, you know, my theory behind this is the classic kind of buy the hype, sell the news event, right? The listing was the news event that, you know, promoted this selling. And another way to think of this too is that Grayscale, all of these financial institutions, they're probably acquiring as much Ethereum as they can before their ETFs are released, right? So that way, whenever it is released, they can sell it to you, the consumers, and essentially dump the price. There's no more buying pressure. They've scooped up all the Ethereum that they need, right, to back up their ETFs or their trusts or whatever. So there's less buying pressure. Therefore, we're getting a little bit of repercussions on this. We saw it with Bitcoin. We're seeing it now with Ethereum. In fact, if we go back, I think Bitcoin's was it January 11th? Let's see. It was this day here. It was this day. Yeah, January 11th. That was the day of the listing. We continued to drop at that point for, well, that's not what I meant to do, for 12 days. So it could be 2 weeks that we're dropping, you guys. And maybe we drop that intense, you know, however intense that would be. That would have been like from a high to a low. What is that? 21.5%. Maybe Ethereum does the same thing. I don't know. But as far as ETH goes, this is, I mean, it probably has more to go. It probably does drop more. I mean, from a low point to a high point here, I would assume Ethereum itself tearing through the 382 like this, it probably does make a run for its 618, which would be about a 4.23% drop. Maybe goes all the way down to its 786 or even its 886. I wouldn't anticipate more than a 10% drop from its current price. This did close before. This actually did close before today's prices, right? So this was back yesterday, 1930. We are at today, the 25th, not yesterday, the 20th. So let's see, 1930. Did I have it on an hourly? 1930. It's because it opens up on the 30. Don't mind me talking to myself. So it closed around here. So we've actually got a little bit more of a drop going on. I have to put this on 30-minute intervals because of that shenanigans. Let's see, 1930. This is when the ETH ETF closed. It is down right now 4.78%, and then it probably has another little bit to go. Let's see. I would say anything from 8.5% to 14.2% is on the table. So 8.5%, 14.2, unless we happen to reverse by the open tomorrow, which I doubt, but 8.5% would be the minimum. right? I'm pretty sure that's what it was, 8.5, something like that, around like $26 down there to 14.2%. Could bring it down to about $24.40, something like that. $26 to $24.4. That's where ETH is probably going to go over the coming days. That's probably what's going to happen. It might not be by the end of this week, but maybe sometime next week. Of course, the sooner we get down there, the better. I don't know if it's going to drop a full 14.2%, right? And again, this is a measurement from where the ETH trust closed today, not where the current price. It's closed, so it doesn't have this extra bit of price action that we've got starting the new day. So I bet we do have some follow through. We are picking up volume as we're moving down, so I bet ETH continues to drop. Anyways, that's all I have right now. I would assume that it will continue to rise, as did Bitcoin, right? I mean, after its ETF, I think this is the only American approved ETF on the planet that, I don't know, I've got all this noise on here, that did not see a long-term drawback after its approval date. It actually increased not shortly after that. So I think we are on the precipice, you guys, of our next pump. And as Ivan on Tech would say, if you guys know who Ivan on Tech is, he says we are always the dumpiest right before we are the pumpiest. So a little bit of a dumpy dump, and then we'll get that pumpy pump. ETH being the second highest crypto in market cap, it probably will help lead the markets whenever it stops selling off. Again, probably all the selling pressure because the ETFs are selling off, right? They're available to us, the consumer. The exchanges aren't buying it. The institutions aren't buying it anymore. They've got their bags loaded so that they can sell it to us. We're the ones being dumped on. So that's my kind of theory. But also just buy the hype, sell the news. There's no news driving event. We've overpriced the event probably, and here it goes. I don't know. LTCN is the next one. LTCN. Who really knows why things move up or down? That's kind of my least favorite question whenever people ask me in the comments, why do you think this is moving down? It's like, why does the price do what it does? And I'm like, I don't know, man. Your guess is as good as mine. Whatever, you could come up with some kind of cockamamie idea, and it would probably be just as good of a explanation as I could give, honestly. Let me see. Hold on. There was something else I wanted to make sure I'm not missing. Okay. Because Mark had a specific request on ETCG, but we'll go over that whenever it's time. So 1 second here. There we go. LTCN, probably going to pull back a little bit, yes, as is the rest of the market. No, I don't think it will see a lower low. If it does, it'll be very insignificant. I would even expect it to be somewhat of like a fake out, right? Could be some kind of construed triple bottom, right? And on a triple bottom, it's not uncommon to have a slightly lower low or even a slightly higher low. But really, if it's a higher low, it would just be in succession with this, and that's kind of what I'm expecting, honestly. From a low point to a high point here, and I would use this high, not this high. That's kind of your fake out high. I would say probably down to 1968 to 1910. At the lowest, 1762, but I would think this golden retracement area hits. It does seem to come in line with this little trajectory that you've got going on for you right now. Yeah, like right there. So probably sometime this week or next week that's going to happen. LTCN moving down and then moving up, right? I think we've established that that's our low. If it's not, if I'm wrong, okay, cool. You're going to go down a little bit more, and then you're going to go up. Like you're not in jeopardy of anything. You know, anything lower is just extra buying opportunity. I wouldn't buy here, even if you see it go up. If I was looking to buy LTCN, I would just be patient, wait probably till next week, and I would assume that you will get these prices below $20 again, unless there's just so much buying pressure. You know, around these areas, you've got this trend line coming up. You've got the golden ratio from this relative low to high of this consolidation phase. Trading algorithms, traders, people who are investing, people who are watching this, who might have extra capital, you guys all might be buying around the same area. So just as it is with anything that's low liquidity like these Grayscale trusts, not that LTCN is low liquidity in comparison to the rest of these trusts, it's just not as high of liquidity as like the underlying assets are itself. It's more prone to being front ran. So it never hurts to buy a little bit higher and expect it to drop, right? And even if it drops lower than where you're expecting, you know, then maybe you have an opportunity to buy some more if you want to. But let's move on from here. BCHG is, oh wait, I'm sorry, Madeline's Coco, you wanted me to talk about where I see LTCN going by the end of the year. And that's a good question, right? That's a bit trickier. End of the cycle, it's kind of easier for me to guess, and probably easier for me to be wrong on. End of the year, even though it's closer, it's kind of hard to say. It really does depend on how well the underlying asset does. From a high to a low, with the way that you've established yourself, with just how this looks, I would think, I mean, if we continue to move up in this trajectory, by the end of the year, I would think that you're above 150, but below 300. I feel comfortable in even saying that you're going to be below 271. You might interact with prices higher than that, you might, but I think this next move up will take, it'll take some time. Maybe, if you look at this kind of all as one move here, right, where you had even like a little bit, like a couple months or like a month and a half of consolidation right here, this is kind of all one move. You might see the same thing here, right? And in a similar amount of time, if I just move this over here, I mean, that would actually take you into next year. So maybe it's next year, in the very, very beginning of next year. It could quite literally be at the end of this year that you're up in this area, or sometime the way I have it drawn, maybe it's in November. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if this move was even stronger, moving faster than the last one. And I kind of would expect that, because I think LTC is going to finally shut people up with its movements up. We're going to move out of this range that it's been held under for such a long time. I think you're going to see life in a lot of OG coins that kind of look like this, right? That have been consolidating for multiple cycles now. I really do think that this will be the cycle that a lot of these OG coins that have been consolidating for a while are going to break out. And the first step to that becoming more likely is getting above this accumulation range, which I would think this next move for LTC takes it above. So that could imply that LTCN itself sees some greater strength in this next move, right? So maybe it moves up the same overall, but in a shorter amount of time, I don't know, but my genuine expectation would be somewhere up in here. 156 to 271 to be practical, but you could vary just outside of these ranges, of course. But I would think you at least hit the 786 with giving it the go ahead for probably exceeding the 886 by a little bit. But I don't think you're about to break out to new all-time highs this year. You could. I would love to see that. I'd love to be wrong, anticipating this price by the end of the year and it just shoots up. I'd rather be surprised that way than calling for these prices and it falls short of my expectations, right? But I'm not just saying that for the sake of exceeding my expectations. I genuinely do expect that we'll see prices around here. Anyways, that's LTCN. By the end of the year, I think 156, 271 to be completely refined. That's what I would say. So there's that. BCHG has a kind of specific request to it too. With J Guy Kima, you're asking me for the cycle tops, right? And I've gone over that. Actually, J Guy, if you'd like, I don't know if you've seen this video. Maybe I'll leave a link in the description to it, but a lot of you seemed to like it. I liked it. It was a very long video, but I thought it was a good video too. I didn't know at the time of making it how much positive feedback it would get. I'm very grateful for all the positive feedback, but a couple people didn't like it. A few people didn't like it, and maybe that's haters. Maybe it's just people who just genuinely didn't like the video, but it's an hour and 24 minutes long. If you want to watch this video, I'll leave a link in the description to it. And I even give time stamps, for BCHG analysis. I think it's important to watch this part, no matter what part of the video you're going to watch. But I think the BCHG analysis is good. And actually, a little bit before that, I talk about the DXY too. But I guess that's in with the Bitcoin cyclical analysis, so you'll see that anyways. Anyways, that I will leave a link in the description to that video. That way, if you have any questions from what I'm about to say, maybe that video will answer it, because I'm not going to go into in-depth explanations like I did last time. From a high to a low point, I very much would expect that BCHG sees a price range anywhere from 234 to 490, but genuinely, with the consideration of how much I think BCH is going to grow versus how much BCHG has grown versus BCH so far this cycle, I am starting to become more of a believer that we could break above these prices. And I had a couple of you in my last time I talked about BCH going up to about 490 for the all-time high, this current cycle's high. I had a couple of you say, I thought you said it was going to go higher. Some of you said 1,000, 1,500, probably talking about this area. And I feel like I'm clear most of the time. I know I talk fast. I know I say a lot of different things, and I give a bunch of different targets and ranges and stuff like that. But just understand, anytime if I talk about a range, it's you who's seeing this, right? I'm not saying this is where it's going to go. You hear the high number, and you're like, oh, that's where it's going to go. Because that's I think, human nature to get excited about the maximum potential. But understand, that's the given maximum. right? Just like this is not as likely, this would be not as likely, right? The most likely would be somewhere in between if I really had to give it a proper estimate. But with that being said, yes, perhaps I have been not considerate enough of the price action. Perhaps it does break above this, especially giving thought to what I expect from BCH for the rest of the cycle. BCHG does, I do believe, have a chance to see this price target, and if not there, I mean, $1,000 above $600. Like, it definitely has a chance to see prices up there. But the thing is, another thing that a lot of you do is you'll hear my BCH analysis. You'll hear me talking about 20K to 23K, and then you'll run the numbers on that. You'll take the percentage from the current price, run it all the way up to what it could be, right? And then you'll calculate based off of where the BCHG trust is and how it's grown so far. You'll calculate the same kind of dynamic to give you the BCHG all-time high expectations. But BCHG, if I'm expecting, I'm calling for a price really between 13K to 23K, and there is a higher expectation, but I'm not really talking about it as much because I don't know if that's going to happen. I do think that 23K is going to happen. That is my personal call, and that's why I normally refer to it. But that doesn't mean it has to hit. It can fall short of that. It can exceed that, absolutely. It can come very close to it. It doesn't mean it has to hit 23K, right? If you're at $22,000 and you're like, I'm going to wait till 23K because C-Zar said it's going to be 23K, and then it dumps from there, you know, that's close enough, right? Like I might not be precisely right, and I don't expect to be precisely right. This is my call, but who knows where the actual price is going to be. But the main point that I'm trying to say is if you're basing your projections on BCHG based off of this, you see that it's doing 6,000% growth, then that would mean that this could do 12,000% growth. You're nuts. You're not nuts. It's logical thinking, but you're missing a step. You're missing a step. I shouldn't be, right? Like 12,000 would put you all the way up here, right? And the reason why you're missing a step is I don't believe that BCHG will top off at the same time as BCH. So really, if you want to calculate the all-time high for BCHG this cycle, you'd have to go for like where you would assume Bitcoin Cash should be, you know, anywhere from like April to maybe July of next year, maybe August, right, at the latest. And at that, I would think, you know, the end of the cycle is going to be the most phenomenal. We're going to see the greatest, maybe not the greatest growth overall, but we're going to see a lot of growth in a short amount of time. Right? If you look here, the biggest month, both times, so I guess this was the biggest month, but it was 2 months toward the end of the cycle. This one was the biggest month that we had from an open to closing basis, and it was the second month from the end of the cycle as well. BCHG might top off around, like, if I expect BCH to top off in October, BCHG might top off anywhere from, I mean, it did 5 months before the actual high last time, so it could be, you know, 5 months from October would be May. It could be July, it could be August. You know, I do think that it'll be a closer proximity. Last cycle, and I know I'm saying a bunch of things, but I think that it's clear, right? Last cycle you topped off here in BCHG, BCH topped off over here, and thankfully, you actually had another kind of like a double top. You had another opportunity to sell here. You might not get that this time. I don't know if I would expect that. Maybe you do. Maybe you hang out again. I don't know. But the actual high itself, I would assume, is going to be before BCH tops off, probably closer than 5 months. I think it's going to be closer than it was last time. But it is possible that it could be further, too. It genuinely could be further. My expectations don't mean shit. The charts don't care about my opinion, right? It's going to do whatever it wants to do. It cares, I guess, about market participants' opinions and the people who have a lot of it, or the market makers, you know, who are controlling, maybe not controlling the price, but guiding the price. And I know Grayscale says they don't have market makers, but I don't believe that personally. Maybe they don't have formal market makers, but they've got to have something helping guiding the price. If you know, I know they say they don't, but I don't believe that for a second personally. But maybe that's true. Maybe, I don't know. What I'm trying to say is even based off of this, actually, BCH going to 23K and this going up there, you know, it could happen. I don't know if it's as likely to happen, but I do think something in between this purple line to the orange line is a more plausible possibility, right? Something around maybe like $600 to $1,200, something like that. It could hit $1,400. It really could. I'm more accepting of that now than I've ever been, but I'm not entirely positive of that. So a lot of maybes, a lot of maybe this is, maybe that's. What I want to say before I end this segment of the video is, I know I said May at the earliest, but genuinely BCHG could top off as early as April, right? This is all under the assumption that BCH tops off in October, but what if it tops off earlier? What if BCHG doesn't top off closer to the top of BCH like I'm expecting? What if it tops off further? Then it wouldn't be May, it could be April. You know, I think if you have a large amount and you want to layer out April, depending on how things look, you know, I'll keep you guys informed as we go on. April, not just for BCHG, but for LTCN, might be the beginning of that phasing out kind of time frame. Maybe even earlier than that, like genuinely even earlier than that could happen. It just depends on where we are in the beginning of next year, and how the market kind of looks, right? The overall dynamics. But I would think that that things will be good probably through Q1. Going into Q2, we can talk about layering out, probably not just for Grayscale Trust, but for various cryptos as well. But for most of the market, I think it'll be Q3, even Q4, that we would see. I guess October is Q4, so Q4, if not late Q3, that we would see most cryptos topping off. But again, the Grayscale Trust will top off earlier. I said I wasn't going to go into great detail, and I didn't. I just did a lot of talking. I didn't do a lot of explanation. But this video, I'll leave a link into it if you want to watch it. I think it's good. I don't know. I think it's good. Hit that like button and subscribe if you think it's good. Hit the like button on this video if you think it's good too. But for the short-term stuff, basically, if I had to, J-Guy, Kima, if I had to give you an answer as to where I think the all-time high is going to be for BCHG, I would say I'm not completely confident. I am fairly confident that you're going to see 490 at least. I'm not completely confident that 1400 is going to be hit, but more so I'd say I'm the most confident that it will be somewhere in between this area. So whether you want to start layering out on a time perspective as early as like April and going forward, none of this is financial advice. Do what you want to do. If you see things in the charts or you hear things that I'm not going over, you know, make your own decisions. But if you want to go off a time analysis or time basis, that's cool. If you want to go off a price basis, this is the range that I would give for price. If it agrees, if you're in April and you're in this zone already, then maybe it is a good time to start layering out. That doesn't mean selling everything, but just as people like kind of DCA in, right? Maybe you bought up here and that was a horrible buy. Maybe you bought down here, it's a better buy, and maybe you bought down here to get your kind of average down. Do the same thing on the way up, right? Maybe you sell some here, you sell some here, it tops off, you sell some there, it goes lower, you sell the rest of your bag there, and then it dumps. You might not catch the absolute high that way, but this way it prepares you. And that's the thing that people who are investing in something that's moving up ridiculous amounts need to be cognitive of, is that you need to be prepared to sell. It's really easy back here to say, I'm going to sell up here. It's really easy to say that. But man, when you're in the midst of that ride, when you are literally at the top of that wild ride, they call it euphoria for a reason. You think it's not going to stop, and you get a little bit greedy. Don't get greedy. And the best way to do that is force yourself to take some off the table. Take a little bit off the table. It makes you less attached. And then if you're wrong and if you are greedy and you hold on to some, at least you've taken some profits at good areas. You know what I mean? I don't know, to each their own though. You know, maybe I'm wrong and it just skyrockets. But another note I want to hit on before we move on to ETCG and we go over Mark Blackfox's special order here is that actually the short-term time frame stuff. Hold on. BCHG looks like it wants to move down in the short term. I would compare it a lot to LTCN. Right? I don't think it'll move lower than this low, but lower nonetheless. Double top on your overbought going down. You probably go down to about 930. You might see prices just below or just above $9, I should say. If not, maybe you hold 979, 1031, maybe you hold that area, but I think 930 to $9 is a good area. Either way, I would think probably next week is where we're going to find those lows. It might not be this week. It could be this week. You know, it depends on how much we drop to tomorrow and the next day, but we'll see. Time will tell. BCH is actually dropping. Maybe it is this week, man. Maybe it will be tomorrow or the next day that BCHG finds its low. Because I can't see it going too much lower. I don't anticipate that BCH will drop lower than this price here. And yeah, man, it just looks like a perfect inverse head and shoulder. So if BCH is dropping, BCHG probably does drop more. And with the rate that it's going, I wouldn't be surprised. Like next week is 1, 2, 3, 4 days away, including today. It's like 4 days away. So I just don't see it taking 4 days to get down to this area at its current rate. Maybe it does, but either way, what I'm trying to say is I think it's going to go down. And then the next thing that I want to add on, what was it for BCHG, is that somebody was talking about, I forget who it was, but it was in the Discord. Mr. Hat, I think it was you, talking about the ETF for BCH and just my thoughts on that and stuff like that. And I'm just, you're not the only person that's asked this, and everybody has their own opinions. My opinion does not have to be right. Though I think that it's proper, but that's because it's my opinion. You know, I've got my own bias there. My thoughts on BCH not getting an ETF, and there's more talk about Solana getting an ETF than BCH right now. I don't care about that. I think the media, personally, I believe that the media has everybody in crypto warped. I remember when I got into crypto and the ETFs were being discussed as being approved, right? People wanted it to get approved because they wanted the financial institutional on-ramps, but the majority of people were actually like, screw your ETFs, we don't need your ETFs, we're going to go up without them, we don't need them. And in fact, the true essence of crypto is to be decentralized and not be incorporated by these large financial institutions. Whenever they're incorporated into ETFs, it actually debases the value of the underlying asset, because now you have paper Bitcoins, now you have paper Ethereums, now people who are buying these trusts or these ETFs, they're not buying the underlying asset. They're not putting their money toward the asset. They're putting their money toward the corporations. And those corporations are now the ones that have the capital to buy the real asset. Meanwhile, they're selling you paper assets. I think ETFs are just bogus, whatever. I get the bullishness, and it makes for a nice narrative, but that's the whole point. I think the media has people sucking on the tit of these ETFs, thinking that we need the ETFs to go sky high. You guys, if we never had a Bitcoin ETF, we would still have a bull market. Bitcoin Cash never gets an ETF, it's still going to make higher highs. We don't need the ETFs. The truth of the matter is the ETFs need us. The corporations need us. They need our money. They want our money. And that's why they spin these ETFs as like a good thing. That's my personal opinion. And the majority of crypto used to be like that. I remember all the major YouTubers used to say that. Now they're all like, give us an ETF. Like, please give me the freaking ETF. I want it so bad. Like little, I don't even know. It's like just the opposite of what I remember it being. But it used to all be about decentralization and screw the big banks and screw the big institutions. But now it's like, please give us, we don't want them involved. The faster they get involved, the less chance that we have for people all over the world that are not institutional players to get involved at a more fair and appropriate price, at lower prices, right? So, and then on top of that, it just concentrates the pool of these cryptos into a more centralized point. And then you're buying the paper assets. You're not buying the actual asset itself, which is just not. It's literally the anti-crypto. It's the antithesis of crypto. Would that be the what is an antithesis? Define. Maybe I'm thinking of the wrong word. Antithesis. Am I spelling it right? Antithesis. It's antithesis. Antithesis. I thought it was antithesis. A person or thing is direct opposite of someone. Yeah, kind of. Yeah, that's actually exactly what it is. The antithesis. So, anyways. Screw your ETFs. We don't need them. You need us. You need our money. You need our cryptos. We don't need your ETFs. The ETFs are literally valueless, in my opinion. The only value they bring is that it'll bring institutional players a new ramp to get in. But to be completely fair, guys, institutions have been in crypto since I think 2017 at the earliest. Maybe it's 2015 at the earliest that we have public information of, right? Like, if the institutions want to be involved in crypto, they're going to. They don't need ETFs. The only reason for an ETF is to sell it to people while they are the ones actually holding the real valuable stuff. But enough of that. I went on way longer than I meant to with that whole part. But ETCG is the next part here. Grayscale Trusts, Ethereum Classic. And again, I could be wrong. The ETFs seem to be being perceived as a good thing. The market's reacting to them in a good way, to be completely fair. But, my opinion is not law, and I know that, but that is my opinion. I'm entitled to my own opinion. I genuinely think that it's sad that these that everybody wants these ETFs personally, but like they've got us warped. They've got us warped. That's literally my thoughts on that. But enough of that. Low to high. ETCG looking like it wants to move down, probably to its 382. Hey, this is looking nice, actually. I'm not gonna lie, I like it. On a weekly basis, definitely your RSI looks like it wants to break down. You have broken out of this uptrend, this long established uptrend that you had. You even back tested it here for resistance, right? Like right there, back tested it for resistance, support, support, support all the way up, and then boom, back tested it for resistance. You're probably going to go to your oversold zone. You could go below your 382 with that kind of look. What about your last fib, your greater fib here from a high to a low? Perhaps you do go all the way down to your 236.5 area. You could go to 655. You're at 1064 now. I don't know. It's hard to say. We'll look at the daily in a second, but you might hold that $9.33 area where this 382 is, because it is just below this 382. It's less common, I guess, to break below it on your second attempt, but you could, because it's also got the 123 moving average here on the weekly. You might hold that 933 area. Let's look at the daily. Yeah, the daily RSI looks bad too. So daily and weekly would suggest that you're going lower. This is one of those that seems to be deathly afraid of its oversold zone. So with that kind of look, I would say you don't need to get oversold. Generally with this look, I would expect that you do, but perhaps you hold this area at 35, which seems to be kind of prominent recently. Maybe I wouldn't think you hold the 40 with the way you're looking right now. I wouldn't think you do. You had the opportunity, but you gave it back up. Right? If you wanted to hold this 40, you should have continued to bounce from here, and you didn't, and that's okay. But the daily RSI definitely looks bad. It would suggest that you are going lower. You have a higher or a high and a lower high here, and having higher highs in the RSI, getting above the 50 for a brief moment in time, and then staying below it, definitely showing weakness from a low point to a high point here. I mean, 933 was the target area, right? 872 is the 1618, 949 is the 1414. A lot of these cryptos and crypto trusts, I've noticed that they've gone just through their 1414. So 933 around there could be the area. If not, perhaps you go lower. You know, that $6.60 area, $6.50 area is on the map for a couple different indicators there too, or a couple different fib retracement zones. Yeah, I think it's moving lower. Probably moving lower. As far as what I think, let's see, Mark, you had a specific request pertaining to this one, right? Currently trading at a 40% discount. Last cycle average 50 to 150% premium for several months. Thoughts on Ethereum Classic potential plus ETCG with ETF competition. That's another thing too. As far as the ETFs go, I don't think that it's going to be competition, right? I think Ethereum itself, whether it's got the trust or it doesn't, or the ETF or it doesn't, I think it's just as much competition. And the thing is too, it's not like it's taking money away from ETCG, these trusts being approved. If anything, it's just an on-ramp for more money to go to Ethereum than it would have before. It's not like it's taking money, siphoning money that would have gone to ETCG. I think anybody that wants to, and maybe I'm wrong in that, maybe I'm wrong in assuming that, but I would say really it's bringing in new money, not taking money that's already here away from anything, you know. And maybe it is, maybe to a certain degree, but I would think too, you know, if you've got some savvy investors out there, they might be looking for the next ETF approval. Being that 3 Grayscale trusts have already gotten approved, maybe they'll be like, I should have a little bit of money in these higher liquidity trusts like ETCG, like BCHG, like LTCN, like G-Sol, right? G-Link. I don't know if that one has as much liquidity, but those ones, right? They might think these could be the next ETFs get approved. 3 of the Grayscale trusts already had their trusts converted to ETFs. What's the next one going to be? If anything, even though it was an ETH ETF getting approved, it actually might bring more volume to ETCG than it would have without it, technically, right? Because it might bring more attention. People might be looking for the next ETF. And being that this is the only one on a discount, it could turn some people away, but it might turn some people to it because there's some incentive to buy, right? It's at a discount. And if it were to get an ETF approved, then you're going to get that automatic pump up to the NAV price. Anyways, what do I think of it, Mr. Mark? I think, hold on, let me get this back to normal here for me so I can see myself. I think that, it's interesting that ETCG has not seen a premium so far. Hold on. Just want to make sure I'm not missing anything else. I think it's interesting it hasn't seen a premium so far. I don't know if that's a good thing. It might be. It might be that kind of diamond in the rough, right, that people are looking for or not looking for, but it just might be there, right? As far as like, does it see a premium this cycle? I would expect that it does. I would assume that it does, especially as we go to our cycle highs. But actually, even here at its last cycle highs, the NAV price was higher. It was at a discount even at its all-time highs, and that happened last cycle. Could that happen again? It's completely possible. I think it is completely possible for whatever reason. Maybe Grayscale themselves are selling their ETC. I don't know. ETC per share. That's a pretty high amount, right? That's a pretty high amount per share compared to some of these other ones, right? If we go to like BCHG, Grayscale, I know. I'm going to go through all of it, but just 83% versus not even close to a percent, right? I guess close to a percent, but not even a percent. LTCN, Grayscale. %, not 83%, right? G-Link, Grayscale. And what does this mean? Who knows? But I mean, 91 there. Is it at a no? It's at a massive premium. So there goes that theory. I don't know. Maybe it doesn't mean anything. I don't know. I don't know how they establish their shares per underlying asset that they hold, right? Or underlying asset per share that they hold, I guess, would actually be the technical, the proper way to divide it. ETCG might see a premium. It might not. Don't count on it. Because last cycle it didn't see it, right? And it still did decent, right? It had a nice pump last cycle. It was a nice 20x there, almost a 21x. But it has been lackluster throughout its whole life. Something like this, I mean, it's not getting increased volume. I don't know. I don't know. I'm skeptical. I'm very skeptical. And I accept that I could be very wrong about it. But as far as like ETH goes, I guess ETCG has me more excited than ETH probably, because it's at least a trust and not an ETF. So it does have the capability to see premiums, where ETH has foregone its capabilities to see premiums. I'm just not too optimistic for this thing as far as seeing like any crazy premiums go, or premiums at all. It might. I would kind of expect that, but then again, also looking at what it's done historically in its last cycle, it doesn't have to. As odd as that is, it doesn't have to. If it were to see new all-time highs from its current price, you could see something of a similar growth that you saw last time from this low to high, which would be about 20. This would be a 23x, 23.5x. Maybe it goes higher. It is possible, in which case that'd be like a 77x. But I don't know. It's hard to say. I don't feel confident really in calling for an all-time high on this. It might not see new all-time highs, or maybe like genuinely, maybe it sees a price as high as 64. Maybe it sees prices higher. Maybe I'm being too bearish, right? I don't know everything. And this is where I don't know if you asked this, Mark, but I think somebody did. They asked me to compare it to ETC. This is where I guess comparing it to the underlying asset would go, right? From a low price to a high price, or a high price to a low price, the minimum expectation would be at 359, which is about a 16x, right? 16x right there. From a low point, let's just go from the low point in June of 2023 to a high point. You saw an overall 214%. The low point of June in 2023, I guess we can go from this low point to high point. You did see more of a growth. Okay, to be fair, you did see more of a growth. But let's go to June. 310%. I don't know. So you did see more growth, right? Technically speaking. In which case, maybe you do see 250. I'm a little less skeptical of that now than I was a second ago, to be completely fair. Maybe you do, but that does depend. It really does depend on the underlying asset, right? I think ETC will see new all-time highs. Its chart looks bullish enough, in my opinion. I do think that it's going to go there. It's not like it's got the highest market cap in the world, right? If we look at it, let's see. Come on, CoinGecko. This thing is like glitchy. I don't know how else to put it. Let's see here. I mean, 3.268 billion is definitely not a low market cap. It's not the highest market cap ever, right? That would be tens of billions. It'd be like 45, over 45, maybe close to 50 billion, right? Right? Probably. Over 45. It'd be over 45, but under 50. Yeah, I could see it going to 250. I could see that. I think that I could see this growing, up to those market cap areas. Could it go beyond that? Then you're talking about $100 billion market cap, actually more than that. I don't know if it sees that, but it's hard to say. I do think that I will say that I'm a little bit more optimistic on it now than I was before, and I feel like that's how it always is with this thing. I'm just skeptical because it's like it's the only trust that's left behind. It's the only trust that's really not. I don't know. Maybe it's not the only trust, but if it's not the only trust, it's one of the only trusts that's still at a discount. It's like why? Why is there not as much interest in it as there is with the other trusts? And that doesn't normally bode well, in my opinion. If we look at, let's go to 24-hour volume here on just ETC itself. Where are you? Where are you, ETC? Right here. That's pretty decent volume, I guess. You're more than halfway up the list. You're probably like a third or a quarter of the way up the list. That's not bad, but I don't know. It's not great volume for its market cap, to be completely fair. It's great out of the top 100, but it's not the best market cap ever. I don't know, man. I'm just droning on at this point. I do think ETCG probably has a little bit lower to go, probably. Again, that 650 area, even $6 itself could be on the table. 933 is, or 932 is an area that I like personally. And it definitely could go a little bit lower. I'm open to the idea of it going lower, but it's very possible that you might hold this area. You've got support back here. You've got a gap right here, relative areas that could be a support, and then your 123 moving average as well down in that area. So it just depends on what things look like with the overall markets and the underlying asset by the time you get down there. So, and I would expect that the overall markets do start to turn up soon, but not before you get down there. So I think that 930 area might be where you go, but don't be surprised. Don't be sad if it goes down to $6. It's absolutely possible, but I would personally more expect that 930 area. Anyways, I got nothing else to say. If you guys like the video, hit that like button, subscribe if you want to see more content like this. And okay, that's all I got to say. Take care. See you on the next one. Bye-bye.